This year marks 10 years of being a medical cash practice owner. If you know, I own or co-own several of them. This is our latest. We're building a med spa up here. And on the program is someone who took a single location and then turned it into 12 locations, 12 multi-state locations that generate $13+ million annually. You get to hear her story, how she started from e-commerce beginnings, took her knowledge of marketing, and then got into the brick and mortar businesses, and is now an attorney, and she helps other healthcare individuals, doctors, nurse practitioners, see their vision. And I learned about her when I purchased her book, MedSpas Confidential, which is an Amazon bestseller. I think you'll really enjoy hearing her story. My interview with Sara Shikhman on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, this is Dr. Mike Wu-Ming. Welcome to another edition of Bootstrap MD. And we're starting a series about talking about how you can get started in private practice, normally cash pay practices. And I got a lot of questions about this as being a cash practice owner and a med spa owner. I'm a med spa owner, opening up a second one, medical director for a couple of them. And I thought I knew everything there was to med spas until I got a hold of this author's book. And her story is pretty amazing. She's an attorney. Don't get started on attorneys. I got too many attorneys in my life, but she's a cool one. An e-commerce expert. She's the co-author of the MedSpas Confidential, which is a +1 bestseller on Amazon in dermatology. She specializes in the healthcare, tech, and beauty industries. As a president of an e-commerce company, she achieved $12+ million in revenue in just under 2 years after launch. She now is a general counsel and director of a sales of a multi-spa medical practice, growing from a single room location to 12 locations in over $13 million in annual revenue. I didn't know her until I was actually looking for a book on med spas on Amazon. I had one that I was going to pick, and then her book came out. I downloaded it on my Kindle, got on a plane, read half of the book on the plane trip, and then took more notes when I got home. So I reached out to them, and this is just one of the authors who can be joining us. So here, introducing on the show today is Sara Shikhman. Sara, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much, Dr. Mike. It's nice to be on this podcast with you, and thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm excited to share some of the pearls from the book and my experience with your audience.
Well, first off, you talk about your story in the book as well as your co-author's story. And you started from an e-commerce background. And I'm also have, my origins in e-commerce, although your e-commerce company is probably one of the strangest names of e-commerce that I heard, but it tells exactly what they do. So talk about that and what you learned from being involved in that company.
Sure. Yeah. So long ago, when I was working as a corporate attorney at Deutsche Bank, a couple of my friends approached me and they said, "Hey, we want to start an online startup selling furniture, and we want you to be the CEO." And I said, "Oh, that's great. I don't know anything about furniture or about being a CEO. I just know about being an attorney." And they were like, "Well, you're one of the smartest people we know. We want to hire you anyway." And I said, "Well, I really don't love, the corporate law life. And so let me try this." And so we started the business from the ground up, literally from zero, where we had a small investment. And one of the first questions was, what should we name our company? And this was like back in, 2008. And we were not very creative. And we were like, okay, but what are we going to be selling? And we were like, we're going to be selling bedroom furniture at a discount. So we called our company, the website, Bedroom Furniture Discounts. It has its advantages because when people would Google bedroom furniture discount, it would come up organically. At the same time, being known as the discount player forever was not so great. But it was a fun learning experience.
So you did that. You exited out of that, and I don't want to. You talk about your story, how you ended up in this med spa world. So if you could kind of share it with the audience. You're an attorney. You're not a medical, doctor. So how did you end up being in this profession?
I knew nothing about this industry, and by that time I knew about running a company. I had scaled that furniture business to be a couple of $1 million a year in sales. I guess about 14 million in revenue, and my husband at the time said, "Hey, I'm a dermatology resident. I've always wanted to have a side project and open a dermatology clinic doing Botox. Can you help me run the business side of it?" And I was like, what is Botox? Like who's doing that? It's only plastic surgeons seem to do that. And how are we going to get started? It seems like you need a lot of money. But in actuality, after doing some research about it and how the special way that these procedures make people feel and how repeatable they are and how trainable they are, I realized that it's an amazing segment of the market. And we again started the business from the ground up, from like one room in an old decrepit building to a 12 location medical spa across several states.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Yield Nodes. If you're looking to get into cryptocurrency, but you're scared away by all the volatility, first, I don't blame you. Recently, I discovered a passive income opportunity, which is known as Yield Nodes, which is a profit sharing program where they are investing in creating nodes, creating servers that can help the blockchain. My returns average about 8 to 10% per month. I'm not a financial advisor. You should do what you feel is important for your money, but if you want to check this out, go to bootstrapmd.com/go/yieldnodes, and I think you'll be really excited about the opportunities that are possible through cryptocurrency. That's amazing. What did you learn from, because as I said, I've been in the online background as well. What did you learn when you decided to open up your brick and mortar clinic? Just a little bit of background to my story. I was in the online space, and then I was kind of naive and thought, well, I'm smart in marketing. I can do it. And then almost lost my shirt the first 2 years. How did you succeed?
I think that I decided that the space was kind of in its infancy, and I didn't really have to listen to how everybody else was doing it. And so, for example, in the beginning, we were told, okay, Instagram, this was a long time ago. Instagram, people were like, if real doctors don't post on Instagram, don't post on Instagram. Like, we would get advice like that. And we would just ignore that advice because I hadn't tried it for myself. So how could I say for sure that it's not going to work? And so we would try a lot of unconventional things. Or back then, Google would give you like a free Google specialist to help you set up your Google AdWords account so you could run keywords. And so the Google specialist would say things like, well, you guys are selling Botox, but maybe your keywords that people should search for, maybe you should bid on plastic surgery. And we were like, well, that doesn't seem right. We're not going to do plastic surgery here. We're going to do Botox here. So we kind of would ignore some of the advice that people would give us, and we would do trial and error. We had months where we would spend $1,000 on marketing and get 0 clients. We would have months where we would spend $20,000 on marketing and have 200,000 in clients. So it was a big learning experience for sure. And we were thankful that we were able to place some of those online ad spends on our credit cards, because otherwise I think we wouldn't have been able to pay the bills.
That sounds very familiar. So I want to take you back to that first clinic. Kind of want to experience that. Like, how many employees did you hire? Maybe talk about maybe some of the challenges you faced in that first year.
Yeah, I think in this business, in the medical wellness, concierge medicine, med spa space, one of the hardest parts is employees. And when I say employees, I mean not just employees in the strictest sense of the word, but your staff, contractors, your medical director, your vendors, just people relationships is the hardest part, because at the end of the day, what you're selling is not the Botox. What you're selling is a service provided by a person. And so what happened in the early days was we didn't really know that. And we learned that lesson the very, 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 very hard way. So one of the first employees was a esthetician that we hired. And I had never hired an esthetician before. I didn't even know what estheticians did. I had to really look up the scope of practice and talk to the board of cosmetology. And so this esthetician would come to work and she would do facials and other treatments. And she was literally teaching us how facials were supposed to be done so we could write the protocols of how they should be done. But what we didn't realize is how dependent you become on your employees, because if the esthetician would call out sick, like I can't fill in for her. So, or if the esthetician decided to quit and give us 1 hour notice, which happens in this business, you can't fill in for her. You have to cancel everyone. So it's a very delicate balance of how you have to be to your staff. So one of the first things that happened was the esthetician called out, and she had legitimate reasons for doing so. But in any normal corporate environment, the environment I came from, a person has a call out, no show, whatever, they get terminated. In the aesthetics world, you have to have more flexibility because you are so dependent on the person and the client relationships. And so in the beginning, we were very inflexible and we had a lot of turnover. But from that, I learned that you have to be a little bit more flexible in this particular area. You could have really great contracts, which we do now, but you still have to sometimes make reasonable exceptions so your business can function.
Got it. What kind of services were you offering in those beginning days?
We were offering a very simple menu. I think simple menu is key for any business really starting in this area. So we were offering Botox, fillers, microneedling, and facials, and that's pretty much it. Like just those, no devices, no nothing too complicated. That's it.
And that's usually where I see one of the biggest issues, of someone trying to break into this field. They say, how can you get a laser salesperson to stop bothering you? Is to buy the laser, right? And they buy the $100,000, $200,000. They start off on day one by buying some cool sculpting or whatever it is. You didn't do that, and I didn't do that as well. And I think that was kind of a big thing that kind of saved me. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think the machines are not going to bring in the customers. That is a fallacy. I don't know where they originated, but I think buying machines ahead of having a client base is not the right strategy for most people. I think if you are extremely well capitalized and you already know and have done the research and you know exactly what machines you need to accomplish your business goals, that's one thing. But if you're like most people starting in this business, you have no business making the machine the first thing you get. The first thing you should probably get is something that has a cheaper cost, like to start, like Botox or fillers or a microneedling pen. But yeah, I think machines and the machine contracts are often what brings a business down, where, the contracts are not easy to get out of. They're personally guaranteed. The interest rates are very high. And a lot of them have this term in it where even if you pay off your equipment early, you still owe the same amount of money. So if you decide, I want to pay off my loan for my cool sculpting early, I have enough money for let's say $100,000 I own, but my equipment contract says that I still owe $200,000 of payments. Unlike your mortgage, which if you paid early, you save $100,000, your equipment loan, the way it's worded, 95% of the time, you still have to owe the $200,000. So, bad things can happen if you sign those contracts and they're not reviewed by a lawyer or somebody who knows those types of arrangements.
Yeah. And it's funny with these, with each of these lasers or these energy devices, they're quick to say, hey, we can provide the financing to you. Kind of a funny story, although really not too funny when you think about it, is they said, I had someone come in, looked at this device, it was like $150,000, and they say, oh, well, we do our financing. We just need 3 months of your previous bank accounts. And I said, okay. And then I forgot about it. And then I never turned anything in. The next day, oh, you're approved.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. But you find out the reason they do is because the rates are really predatory, and a lot of the examples that you talked about. So for someone who is starting up, they want to do a med spa, what kind of advice would you give them? Let's say they've got a limited amount of budget that they can start with, and they're a physician.
I would say thank God, or whatever you believe in. Thank goodness that you have a limited budget, because that limits the number of mistakes you could make. I would say, number one, when starting a business, think about who you actually need to start the business with. A lot of times physicians and other people come to us and they say, well, I want to start this business with such and such partner. They're going to give me $10,000 or $100,000 or $2 million, whatever. And we always say, is that really the best thing? So first, think about whether you could really start the business on your own without too many partners. You could always make people partners later, but first, maybe you want to bring them on as a contractor or as a consultant to see if you guys get along in business. So number one is simplify your ownership to be mostly about you. And number two, simplify your menu of services initially to be things that you truly know how to do and you think that you're good at. And number three, you're going to need to spend money on marketing before you have clients. Not, once I have clients, I'm going to market. No, you need to market and then you're going to have clients. And let's say you want to make $1 million in revenue, be ready to spend $100,000 in marketing at least or more to get to that million. I would say that's my top advice. Like, you have to be ready to have a simple menu of services, be the only owner, and spend on marketing.
As a doctor, I wasn't used to asking for help, especially when it came to subjects outside of medicine. But then I found PhysicianCoaches.com. In an instant, I found hundreds of experts to help me in all aspects of life. On areas I was afraid to ask: dealing with burnout, starting a side gig, money management, even help with my marriage. And the best part? Nearly all experts are physicians themselves. After reading their profile and a quick chat, I knew I found the right mentor for me. At PhysicianCoaches.com, help from professional colleagues is just a click away.
Yeah, and one thing too that I liked in the book is see how we call it our USP, or your unique selling proposition. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in the book, actually scan around your local area, see what you can offer that they're not offering. Being as simple as, maybe they're not open on Saturday and you can be open on Saturday, or maybe you provide, a service that they're not providing. What were let's say, a game changer for you when you said, hey, I want to go from one location to a second location? What do you think were the things that led you to say, oh, I can do this, that really made a difference?
Yeah, I think we felt like we had enough processes in place and they were written down to be repeatable. I think that the key to scaling from 1 to 2 locations is processes. So having a written inventory process, having a process of how the phones are going to be answered, having a process of how every consult is done, using technology in your practice to do online appointment bookings, online payments, online purchases, referral programs that are run through the internet. So making everything as automated as possible, and then opening a second location. I think that a lot of people think that it's okay to, let's say you have one location and there's one injector, and then you're like, okay, should I add a second injector to location 1 or should I open location 2? It is so much cheaper and better and less headache and everything to just add a second injector to your first location. Maybe it looks less cool because you have one location, but it's better most of the time. Unless you've achieved 100% market penetration, you could always add one more person there and get them busy. Because on the second location, you someone to answer the phone, someone to clean the space, someone to count the inventory, someone to see the clients, someone to call if the toilet is broken, all these things. So it's much simpler to have a big location with lots of people. I mean, and we have some clients who literally do 5 to 10 million in revenue from one location per year. Wow. So it's definitely possible, even in a small town. I mean, not a town with 20,000 people, but a town with, let's say, 500,000 to a million population. I know people who do 5 million in revenue, single location office, no surgery.
That's great. That's great. Non-surgical services. I want to talk a little bit about employment, because this is something that I've seen, experienced, as well as some of my colleagues, as is they find someone, they hire someone, or they either, like I've had it where I've basically trained the nurse practitioner and I know exactly what's going on. And then I've had one where they're already like 5 years out and they've already experienced in one place. But when then it comes down to, one thing that happened in California, nurse practitioners are going to be more independent. Mm-hmm. And they're worried about, well, I just trained my competition. What are some things that you can either avoid, or maybe some things that maybe you can screen before you hire them? Where do you kind of stand in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of states, right, non-compete agreements are becoming non-enforceable. So including like New York, California, and some other places. So what do? You can screen for the right person, like you were saying. And the way we would do it is there are these online tools that measure people's personalities actually to see what kind of person they are. So one company that we would use is called Predictive Index. That literally, first you would have somebody who you think would be like your model employee take the test. And let's say the predictive index would say that their personality type is called operator. And you're like, okay, so for this kind of position, what I need is an operator. I don't need an entrepreneur, for example. So one, you would screen their personality. Two, you would have a multi-step interview process where you would have them do some Zoom interviews. You would have them meet you in person. And then for half a day, you would do shadowing. So you would really get to know the person and see, are they going to be on their phone all day? Are they going to come on time? Are they on posting on Instagram every second? And really ask them, like, what is their long-term vision to see if it aligns with you? And one of the main reasons I see people leaving is because they don't see an opportunity for advancement in the current practice. So they're like, okay, this person is making all the money off of me. There's no way for me to grow. Maybe you could tell them, like, after you work here for 5 years, you could buy into the company or become part of a profit sharing program if that's allowed in your state. And 3, the legal ways, you have them sign a pretty tight non-solicitation agreement of your clients, which is still enforceable in most states. You would do a non-disparagement agreement and a confidentiality agreement. With those 3 things, you could really protect yourself. But at the end of the day, the clients may still go with the person. So the other way to protect yourself is also encouraging clients to see not just one injector or provider or one doctor, but everybody in your practice. So making the scheduling such that it almost like rotates. So when clients are booking, they're booking Botox, not Botox with Amy necessarily, or having a promotion. Oh, you tried Botox with Amy? That's wonderful. We have a special targeted to you. Try filler with Matt.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Great advice. I know we've got limited time, but one of the kind of the phrases that I loved in the book is to not think of yourself as just having a med spa clinic, but thinking of yourself as more of a technology company that happens to do med spas, at least in terms when it comes time to selling. And when I've always talked about, you should always build a business with selling in mind. And I think, did that help? It sounded like that's really what helped your valuation, is because you had the technology and you had all of the, you had like a central location. It sounds like everything from outsourcing, you're on the phone and such. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think definitely a technology company or a technology powered company gets much higher valuations, like 10 times, let's say, net income, versus an aesthetics company that could get, let's say, 3 to 6 times net income. And the way to do that is to invest money into technology and outsourcing and automating processes. I'm not saying like you have to become Google, but you have to say, okay, we have our own proprietary way of doing a patient consult. Okay, here it is. We have a 10-step document, and maybe we also have a video of how it should be done. And maybe parts of it, after you have written them out, you could hire a programmer to automate. So the client does part of their self-consult at home. They send you some sort of picture using a template or whatever. So it doesn't have to be like super complex, but I think definitely automation and technology will get you a higher valuation and also allow you to scale. So if all you have are processes on paper or in your head, it's going to be very hard to open a second location or sell your business. The technology is really key in this business for sure.
Yeah. And it's in the 10 years that I've been in the business, it still amazes to me all the technology we've already incorporated from, just online booking and getting on the app, where most of us are in an industry where, let's face it, they're still using fax machines. So I think that's one of the benefits of being your own boss and embracing that technology. So, where do you see the industry? What is your thoughts on where the med spa industry is going? Is this still a forward growing industry, or are there some things we need to watch out for?
Absolutely. I think the med spa industry is definitely still in the prime growth phase. There's new entrants entering it all the time. I think that a lot of doctors I'm seeing, even straight out of medical school, are going into this industry specifically, not pursuing more traditional paths. People are skipping the hospital part. I see a lot of consolidation in the industry in that practices are being bought. So small practices are being bought by bigger practices. And I think in the future, right now, there are very few big dominant players, right? We have
there's no Starbucks yet. There might be a few in mind, but yeah, there is no
we have like
Starbucks. Yeah,
the Ideal Image, the Laser Aways, a few, but there's no real big dominant player that everybody knows. And I think that's going to change. And I think that player or those players will be all based on technology, not so much on, we have the greatest provider, Amy. No, we have like a fully automated process for everything that we do except the actual injections. I think that's going to be the future, because even the companies themselves the vendors are moving toward like having pre-filled syringes and making the treatments easier for clients to understand and do. So there's going to be a future where I think somebody's going to be able to administer their own Botox. So your company is going to have to provide some other kind of service that's not a person coming in. This is my opinion, of course. I don't know for sure, but I think that's what we're moving toward, like a Botox cream, or whatever, or you put on a mask on your face and you press it in certain parts and it makes the Botox go under your skin. So I think in that world of the future, we're going to need to compete based on something else. And that something else is technology.
Yeah, I think half my audience just groaned when you said that, but I definitely, it's a word of warning. You can either be part of it or you can actually, see it go by. You can actually see it go by. And I'm more inclined to, embrace kind of the technology and what's they're about. Sara, this has been a wonderful conversation. Tell us about, your services that you offer to either a beginning or maybe an experienced med spa owner that you currently do in terms of your legal firm.
Sure. Yeah. So we represent lots of med spa owners. We also represent lots of medical directors of med spas and wellness centers and all kinds of different medical businesses, where we help people get legally set up or restructure their business or stay compliant. Or if there's a board investigation, we represent people. And then if people are selling their business or buying a business, we represent the buyer or the seller, sometimes both, but rarely. And we just help people grow in a legally compliant way. So we don't really do too much business consulting. Most of our work is legal. Our website is called lingealaw.com. It's a mouthful. I'm sure it'll be somewhere in this presentation, but We love helping people and being very business friendly in our lawyerly advice, but at the same time, keeping people safe and helping people grow and take their business from one location to two. Or we have clients who started with us as a single room business and now have 10 locations. So that's awesome.
That's amazing. Sara, thank you for joining us. Again, lengialaw.com is where you can go and get more information. Check out her website. She is tell you if you need to get contracts, if you need to get, legal advice, what you do in this field, it's really important that you get the right counsel. Thank you again, Sara, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. And as always, this could be a very exciting business, but, follow the people who've already been there, have already had success, and that's the way that you're going to keep moving forward.